Welcome to the House of Truth. Today we're continuing on our series, our series about the patriarchs. Last week we resumed or we resumed where we left off with Jacob and Laban, where his experience with Laban had caused Jacob to become a changed man. And it was forcing was bringing him to change, returning to the land of his fathers, returning to the house, return to the place of his calling, the land of Canaan. But in doing so, he had to reconcile. He had to face his brother and his father, his kindred. And last week we looked at Israel in Edom. These two people groups that came from Jacob and Esau. And we saw how Jacob had a change of heart. Now, both of these two, Jacob and Esau, had changes of heart in how they reconciled and lived as brothers, and how there was a bit of a change in name too, particularly concerning what their descendants would be known by. And in Jacob's case, he would be called Israel. He would go from Yaakov, literally the hill of God. Speaking of that hill, it's going to crush the serpent's head. Figuratively, hill grabber or deceiver. He's going to go from operating as a deceiver and trying to make the promises of God come about on his own strength and through his own means instead of trusting God to bring about. And he demonstrated that he indeed was he was trusting God, even called Esau Lord. But Esau also had changed heart, and it was like, why are you doing this? Esau had come to accept that it was the will of God that Jacob received the blessing, and Esau had sold the birthright and accepted this. And in the land of Seir, which means goat, it's known for its hunting, and like he was a hunter, suited him much better. He was already moved. He'd already moved there and was living there. So we see there now in Jacob's case, the question, we're going to look at see what we're going to look today and see what happened to his children. Did this change of him? What effect did it have on his children? And that's going to be the day's day. But before that, we got a reminder about Esau because we're going to have we sort of went forward a little bit to wrap up Esau. Then we're circling back today. And Esau, there's something there for his children to beware of. Esau, the Edomites came from two people, the sons of Esau and the sons of Seir, the Hivite, who Esau had married his daughter and married into. And these 12 dukes that were descendants of Esau, 7 that were from Seir, ruled the land of Edom, and they became one people. And there was no sense of in the passing of kings of the blessing being passed down or the birthright. Every time there's a new king, he was not related to the previous king. And we don't know if these dukes, they were called in the King James, duked it out, or how they decided who the new king was. But we know that there was instability inside among the Edomites, pushing and fighting, as Isaac had said, with his sword. And it certainly carried on internally. Exactly how it played out, we don't know. But we do know there was instability. 8 kings, none of them the son of a previous king, in a row. 3 times their capital was moved. So, of the Edomites, the capital of Edom. So, it speaks of instability. And what caused all these problems is you see, as we looked at how Edom had some reverence for God, showing up in the names of his children, but by his grandchildren, there's no indication of that, no connection at all. Great grandchildren, certainly none. And how they moved into idolatry. And what really got them into this was becoming one people with these idol worshippers. Remember, Esau was a man ruled by the flesh. And his wives were idol worshippers. And like a lot of men, as long as the wives are pleasing them otherwise, they'll let them handle they'll just go along with whatever religions the wives want. In this case, idolatry. But the danger was that really wrecked the Edomites was becoming one people, with the sins of Esau becoming one people with these descendants of Seir the Hivite, which was one of the Canaanite tribes. And today we're going to see Jacob's children face a similar test. We'll see how they do here. And we begin we began by circling back right after we left, right after we had kind of departed from our normal path to finish up with Esau, going there as sequentially. And in Genesis 33, verse 17 through 20, read the following. Jacob journeyed to Sukkot and built him a house and made booths for his cattle. Therefore, the name of the place is called Sukkot. And Jacob entered the Shalem, a city of Shechem, which is in the land of Canaan, where he came from Padan Aram, and pitched his tent before the city. And he brought a parcel of field where he spread his tent, and at the hand of the children of Hamor, Shechem's father, for 100 pieces of money. He erected an altar and called it El Elohi Israel. Okay, so Sukkot means booths, as in the Feast of Tabernacles, Sukkot, same thing. Okay, so he made a place, and he built a house. Says he built him a house. No more living in tents. He's, some sort of settling down here. Shalem relates to shalom, peace. So he's now wants to settle down in peace. He's made things good with his brothers. He's buying property where he set his tent. Okay, where he's at. He's built booths for his animals. Nothing about building booths suggests he's going to be mobile like he's been being for a long time. And he's made an altar, place of worship there. The God, the mighty God of Israel, is what that means. So everything's good, and everything is good for Jacob. Looks like the troubles he's brought on are behind him, and he has peace in front of him. But his children are going to prove to be a problem. And this is a problem to that plan. And this is what we see beginning in Genesis 34 in verses 1 through 4. Dinah, the daughter of Leah, which she bare to Jacob, went out to see the daughters of the land. And when Shechem, the son of Hamor the Hivite, a prince of the country, saw her and took her and lay with her and defiled her. His soul clave unto Dinah, the daughter of Jacob, and he loved the damsel and spoke kindly to unto the damsel. And Shechem spake to his father Hamor, saying, get me this damsel to wife. Okay, so Dinah, remember, there's only one daughter at least named. That's Dinah. After she had 6 sons, she bore a daughter. Leah had born a daughter, I should say, and that was Dinah. Now, the trouble begins right here in the first verse, where she went out to see the daughters of the land. What were the daughters of the land? Hivites, which were Canaanites. Same as with the Seir the Hivite. Okay, same people group. And she has now picked up their ways. Okay. Now, some translations say, kind of imply that Shechem raped her or something, but there's nothing in the text. You can read it in Hebrew yourself. There's nothing in the text that really suggests that. I'm not quite sure, where these translators got this ideal, except it's just their own thought. It's really everything about this suggests Dinah went along willingly with this. She is now no longer no contract, no contact. The daughters of the land were not no contract, no contact. They're Canaanites. And the same people that brought the remember Sodom and Gomorrah, those were Canaanites too. Because they do not have the the standard for sex that God has at all, that God gave beginning in the Garden of Eden. And she laid, and he laid with her, but she wasn't fighting, and she may have even enticed him. Now, look, he loves her and wants to speak. Again, there's nothing here indicating that he forced himself on her, as some translations have said. And again, you can go read it in Hebrew yourself and see that there's nothing that really suggests that when you read it in Hebrew either. So just get that. So let's just get that that this woman did this. But notice how Shechem wants to make, as where I grew up, said, an honest woman out of her. He realizes he should not have done this thing, and now he wants to make things right. And he says, so he says to Hamar, bring her to me, wife, and of course he must have a real, he had obviously a really good experience with her as well. But it's more than that. He didn't just lust after her, he loved her and spoke kindly to her. He really liked her, not just as a person. He really liked her, and he wants to make things right. Now, who knows? Perhaps as far the Canaanites, perhaps this was common. I had a friend a long time ago. His father encouraged him, said, "Hey, don't ever think about marrying a woman you've had sex with her several times." He says you wouldn't buy a car without driving it, without giving a test drive first. So try before you buy. And that may have been the thought process that was going on here. But Hamor is an honorable man, as we shall see, despite this. And perhaps his father's anything but honorable, as we'll also see. And perhaps he did this under the influence of his father. But regardless, he wants to make things right. That part's obvious. Now, in Genesis 34, verses 5 through 7, we continue on, and we're going to see some more about the children of Jacob. And Jacob heard that he had defiled Dinah, his daughter. His sons were now with the cattle in the field, and Jacob held his peace until they were come. And the more the father Shechem went out into Jacob to commune with him. And the sons of came out of the field, and they heard it, and the men were grieved, and they were very wroth, because he had wrought folly in Israel in lying with Jacob's daughter, which thing ought not to be done. Okay, notice that Dinah is defiled. Like that word can be, if you the Hebrew word, if you look in the Greek Septuagint, the Greek translation, both carry this idea of polluted, possibly diseased. Okay, so Dinah has lost her purity. Now, it's not because she had sex. She got married first, then the purity would have been intact. Okay, but he has broken the no contact, no contract standard of God. I mean, he's went into her completely. Okay, so I mean, they've gone all the way, and Jacob's isn't going to do anything about this till his sons come in. And of course, part of it is, remember, he's now got a limp the rest of his life. He can't just take matters in his own hand on these matters like perhaps he would have before. But there's a little bit more to that. Remember, he's a changed man. However, look at, and you can see perhaps this guy's doing this. The son's trying to do right, but his sons are not. They're very angry. Wrought folly in Israel. And that expression is used several times in the Bible. And it's usually connected with sexual immorality. Okay, often harlotry, which is enticement, women using sex to entice people to worship idols. But the thing is, this thing ought not to be done. What's that thing ought not to be done? Sex before marriage. Okay. And they are very hot-headed about this, like Jacob was before. Now we're going to continue on in 34 verses 8 through 12. And Hamor communed with them, saying, the soul of my son Shechem longs for your daughter. I pray you give her him to wife, and make you marriage with us, and give your daughters unto us, and take our daughters unto you. You shall dwell with us, and the land shall be before you. Dwell and trade you therein, and get possessions therein. And Shechem said to his brothers, to her foreigner brethren, let me find grace in your eyes, and what you say I shall give. Ask me never so much dowry and a gift, and I will give according as you say unto me. But give me the damsel to wife. Okay, so notice how Amor is making this about more than just his son. His son longs for their daughter. That's true. Shechem again is wanting to make things right, and he really likes Dinah, not just as a person beyond just his sexual experience with her. But notice how Hamor makes it for you're going to make marriage with us, and we're going to make marriages with you. Not just this one marriages, and you're going to dwell with us. You're going to live with us. So he's up to something a little bit deeper, more than just getting his wife, his daughter, Dinah, as a wife for his son here. He's not like his son, who's focused totally on Dinah, and wants to, is willing to make and willing to do whatever it takes to make things right. Well, we continue on here in Genesis 34, in verses 13 through 17, we read the following. And the sons of Jacob answered Shechem and Hamor, his father, deceitfully, and said because he had defiled Dinah, their sister. And they said unto him, we cannot do this thing to give our sister the one uncircumcised, for that were an approach unto us. But this we will consent to you, that you will be as we be, that every one of you be circumcised, and we'll give our daughters to you, and you'll take your daughters to us, we'll dwell with you, and we will become one people. But if you'll not hearken us, and be not hearken us to be circumcised, and we'll take our daughter, and we will be gone. Okay, notice it's not Jacob speaking; it's his sons. He's there, but he's letting them handle this, perhaps to see what they would do, to see what how they're going to handle things. And notice because he had defiled Dinah, their sister. It took two for this to happen. And as we shall see, Dinah has not came running back to them, crying, he forced himself on me, avenge me or nothing. We're gonna see the text will make it plain that she is wanting to marry Shechem as well. She is all for doing this. But notice, so they're blaming Shechem completely as if their sister was completely innocent. Everyone in our families, it's not our family, it's them. Won't own up to the guilt of their own sister in this matter. Again, as I said, and we'll see more evidence. There's nothing in the Hebrew text suggests that he forced himself upon her. She went along with this. She went along with this because she didn't hang out with the daughters of the land, and this was common among them. Now, notice what they say. You gotta be you can't be uncircumcised, you gotta be circumcised. And then what? They put the carrot out there. They recognize what Hamor really wants, for us to dwell with you and become one people. Remember, Esau and his descendants became one people with a group of Hivites, those of Seir the Hivite. Now another Hivite is trying to get Jacob's children to become one, intermarry with them and become one people as well. And that's what he really wants. And they discern that. So they say we gotta be circumcised, and well, that and the reason of course, the reason they're trying to use religion here to justify what? Their deceit. Okay. Yes, God had commanded they in Jacob's camp everyone be circumcised, and they had to be cut off, which can mean excision, just put out of the camp, or can also mean cut off from the land of the living. But at the very least, it means no longer part of the household of Jacob, the household of Israel. And so there's some truth to that, but they're not using it for that reason. They're using it to get these guys. They're using it for deceitfully. And we're gonna look at these things. And we continue on here in Genesis 38, 34, verses 18 through 19. And their words pleased Hamor and Shechem, Hamor's son. And the young man deferred not to do the thing. He did a delight in Jacob's daughter, and he was more honorable than all the house of his father. Okay, notice Shechem is more honorable than all the house of his father. And there's no indication of deceit on this young man's behalf. He's also showing us he's not showing any kind of deceit going on this entire time. Matter of fact, as we read in Proverbs, we looked at Proverbs, the wisdom with wisdom, the wisdom with women that Solomon said. I mean, Solomon basically, if a woman wants to have sex with you without being married to you first, look out, she's after something. Okay, it's unwise of you to do that. You ain't got the sense of a mule if you go for this. Okay, so again, possibly this she learned from the daughters of the Canaanites. Maybe this is how they say, well, this is how you're going to get, how you're going to get a husband. And Shechem, remember, they're in his land. They're in the land of Shechem. He's he's rich and whatever and influential. This is how you get your rich and influential man. But Shechem wants to make things right now. So if that was their plan, it worked. But he is honorable. His father is not. Now we're going to look at his father's intentions in this matter. In Genesis 34, verse 20 through 23. Hamor and Shechem his son came under the gate of their city and communed with the men of their city, saying, these men are peaceable with us. Therefore let them dwell in the land and trade therein. For the land, behold, is large enough for them. Let us take their daughters to us for wives. Let's give them let us give them our daughters. Herein will they consent to us to dwell with us, to be one people. If every male among us be circumcised as they are circumcised. Shall not their cattle, their substance, and every beast of theirs be ours? Unless consent to them, and they will dwell with us. Okay, now Hamor is the one speaking. Okay, Shechem's his son's there, and all he's got his mind on is Dinah. He just wants to marry that girl, but his father's got totally different intentions. His father's wanting them to be made one people with them. And of course, in the process of time, that'd mean leaving off worshiping the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But his thing is greed. His goal is what? To get their cattle and their substance. That that we're gonna get so, and they're married that we're gonna end up with everything. We're gonna end up with their wealth's gonna become our wealth. So now we're gonna see. So now we're gonna see what transpires after his appeal for the men to take this deal. And here's what we get we continue in Genesis 34 in verses 26, 24 through 27. And to Hamor and to Shechem his son hearkened to all that went out of the city of his gate, and every male was circumcised, and all went out the city of his gate. They came to pass on the third day when they were sore, and the two sons of Jacob, Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brethren, each took his sword and came upon the city boldly and slew all the males. And they slew Hamor and Shechem his son with the edge of the sword, and took Dinah out of Shechem's house and went out. And the sons of Jacob came upon the slain and spoiled the city, because they had defiled their sister. Okay, first of all, I want you to notice they are setting up repercussions for years to come. Who had defiled their sister? One man, Shechem. Who did they kill? They killed every man in the city. And and this harkens forward to a man named Haman who wanted to, because of one man, his anger at one man, Mordecai, wanted to kill all the Jews on earth. They're exhibiting that same spirit of Mordecai here. They didn't just kill. They weren't just happy with killing Shechem. And again, notice how Dinah was in Shechem's house. She had not left. She wasn't pleading, come rescue me. She was in Shechem's house, living together with him, ready to become his wife. But instead of acknowledging her blame in this, they took it out on the entire city and killed a bunch of innocent people who had nothing to do with this. The only thing that they had done was consent to be circumcised to try to get their stuff. And the reason why they couldn't defend themselves, because when they're circumcised, they were sore. Back in the day, no anesthesia, no antiseptic. Men were incapacitated for about 3 days after being circumcised. A fever would set in about the third day. And maybe from the third day to say a week, they were pretty much helpless. So that's why they wanted them circumcised, not again to bring them into worship of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but to get them incapacitated so they could kill them and get Dinah out from among them. And notice how they're still blaming not just Shechem, who actually, but they're not owning up to the fact their sister totally went along with this. They're that mindset. My family can do no wrong. If something went wrong, it's got to be the other people. Now we're going to continue on just 34, verses 28 through 31, as we see how these two brothers, same mother, Leah, of Jacob, Simeon and Levi handled what else they do, and how they handle things, and how Jacob responds to this. They took their sheep and their ox and their asses, and that which was in the city, and that which was in the field, and all their wealth and all their little ones and their wives they took captive, and spoiled even all that was in the house. Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, "You have troubled me to make me a stink among the inhabitants of the land, among the Canaanites and the Perizzites, and I, being few in number, they shall gather themselves against me and slay me, and I shall be destroyed, I and my house." And they said, should he deal with our sisters with a harlot? Okay, remember, Hamor, not Shechem, Hamor, not honorable. That was all a scheme of his. Tell him, let's all get circumcised so they could get the livestock and accept of Jacob and his family over time. Now their own livestock and stuff's been taken, their own wealth's been taken. But notice they took their children and their wives as slaves. That's what that means by took them captive and spoiled. And Jacob is not like, way to go, boys. He is upset at them extremely. And he says, are we not going to reap what we sowed here? You went and killed a bunch of innocent people over one person, and they continue to try to justify it. Treat our sister as a harlot. Their sister went along with this. If she played the harlot literally. No, she didn't play the harlot literally, figuratively. We'll get to someone else. I'm saying, she acted like a harlot. Who knows? Maybe she thought in her head, I'll change him. Get Shechem married to me, then I'll get him to worship the God of Israel. But that is, again, the harlot mindset. Get men sexually addicted to me and bring them over to worshiping my God. This was her. They cannot accept her blame in the matter. And they are just justifying themselves. But Jacob is now scared with good reason. Word gets out, these, the Canaanites, other Canaanites and their allies, the Perizzites, are likely to gang up on them and destroy them as his two sons have destroyed their city. Even though the rest of them are innocent, just like the rest of those other men were innocent. And there's a warning there for us. When we don't raise our children right, they will try to they may tightly grab with each other and try to justify their actions, and their own siblings can do no wrong, particularly if they're close blood related, like Dinah was there. And everyone else, if there's something in their action and there was some wrong done, it's the other people's fault. They tempt it. It's because they tempted my sister or my brother, or whatever the case, but they cannot admit the fault of their own. And so Jacob now has raised sons who are like him, took matters in their own hands and were deceitful because they lived under Jacob operating that way and saw it and knew his history for years. And it's just like I knew a bunch of baby boomers in their 40s who really did turn from the wrong they'd done. But the problem is they'd already screwed up their kids by that point. And that's exactly what's going on here. And Jacob recognizes it. Now, God's going to get involved on behalf of Jacob. Not because his children, but for Jacob's sake. And here's what we find in Genesis 35, verses 1 through 3. And God said to Jacob, "Arise and go to Bethel and dwell there, and make there an altar unto God that appeared to you before you fled from the face of Esau your brother, for when you fled." And then Jacob said to his household and to all who are with him, "Put away the strange gods that are among you, and be clean and change your garments. Let us arise and go to Bethel. There I'll make an altar unto God who answered me in the day of my distress and was with me in the way which I went." Okay. Jacob's dream of settling down peacefully has been shattered. Remember, he built a house. He built booths. He tended to stay there. He was tired of them moving around, but it's over. And God is telling him what to do to be delivered from this. He knows he's a stink to these people and he cannot live among them anymore. And God reminds him when he fled from Esau's brother, when he left at 77 years of age and ran to Laban, ran to Laban and was fleeing from his brother Esau. How he'd met God and set up a dream a dream of a ladder going up and down, and set up a pillar there and anointed it. They had made an oath to God. Reminds him to go to, and he called that place Bethel, the house of God. And God's reminding him, return to the house of God. So what's Jacob do? First, he's going to clean his own household. Notice there's idols among his children, and the other people are with him. And that would include, of course, these women and children that they had just taken captive, after killing the men, in the city of Hamor and Shechem. But it also would include those idols that Rachel stole from Laban that Jacob knew nothing about, that we read about, that we saw when we talked about Rachel, Jacob and Laban. It's going to come out, and he's going to clean house. And notice, in wash, you got to be clean to come into the house of God. You got to get every idol out of your life to come into the house of God. Change your garments, change your garments, indicates, of course, you're a changed person. It's an outward expression of that. And we're going to return to the worship of God in the house of God. This is what he tells him. But notice, again, strange gods among you. His children have started worshiping idols as well. Now we're going to look at their response. We're going to look at the response of this, in God's response to their response. In Genesis 35, verse 4 through 5. And they gave unto Jacob all the strange gods in their hands and all their earrings which were in their ears. And Jacob hid them under the oak which was by Shechem. And they journeyed, and the terror of God was upon the cities around about them. They did not pursue after the sons of Jacob. Okay, they have now repented. So as far as what Jacob had told them, they have gotten the idols are gone. Rebecca, those idols she stole from Laban have shown up. I'm sorry, not Rebecca, Rachel have shown up. And what's the deal with the earrings? Well, you find there's earrings and stuff in other places, and it's not always connected to something bad. But so why is the deal here of the earrings? These earrings had a connection with the idolatry. Perhaps little symbols, or maybe they were shaped of, say, a half moon or something like that. They were connected with this idol worship. And you get not just get rid of the idols, but get rid of everything associated with it. And it's the same with us. If God calls us out of something, it's not just enough to get rid of to get rid of the idols. We need to get rid of everything associated with that. We don't, if we had, if our idol was say, let's say was some sort of band that we listened to that inspired us to drink or that inspired a whole lifestyle of drinking and so on and so forth. It's not just enough for us to quit drinking and taking drugs and pot and whatever. We got to get away from that band as well. We gotta get rid of all their posts of our house, their CDs, etc. Okay, we gotta get rid of everything associated with them. Now he put them under the oak. He hid them under the oak. Now, perhaps he would have destroyed them more thoroughly, but he's concerned about escaping. But basically, that's the dump. Okay, he dumped them there. He made this place a dump for these worthless things. And now they're running, but no one's pursuing them. Why? Because the terror of God, now they've gone back to be worshiping God and God alone, God is protecting them. Even though Levi and Simeon deserve to be killed. There's no doubt about it. The whole camp of Jacob doesn't, but there's no doubt Levi and Simeon deserve death here. Because they killed a bunch of innocent men. Regardless of what you may think of Shechem, the other people were innocent. God's protecting them for Jacob's sake, and they've repented. He's given them mercy that they do not deserve, just as he'd given their father mercy that he did not deserve. Now we continue on, and we look at we see what else occurs as Jacob fulfills these instructions that he's been given by God. And so Jacob came to Luz, which is in the land of Canaan, that is Bethel, he and all the people that were with him. And he built there an altar and called the place El Bethel, because God appeared to him before when he fled from the face of his brother. But Deborah, Rebekah's nurse, died, and she was buried beneath Bethel under the oak, and is called Alon Bakuth. Alon Bakuth. Okay, so remember, Bethel was called Luz at first. We read when Jacob first went there. Okay, he was outside the city. Now he's back to the house of God. He's building a new altar. Perhaps that one he'd set up before 20 plus years was taken down. And this happens, but now he's renewing his commitment to God. He's calling it El Bethel, God of the house of God. The same God. Now, why this detail about Deborah? Well, because it shows us something about Jacob himself, and also, first of all, there's no mention of Rebecca. Last time she's ever mentioned, other than this reference right here, is when she had Jacob flee to Laban. She appears to have died before he got back. Well, what was her nurse doing? That's who took care of her. Now, Jacob has been taking care of the one that took care of his mother. Okay. Took care of his mother in her old age. He is taking care of her. And notice she's dear to him. This oak that Alon Bakuth means the oak of weeping. Okay. She is all that he has left of his mother. Deborah is. And now now even this last vestige from his mother has left his life. Now, as we continue on in Genesis 35, verses 9 through 12, we read the following. And God appeared unto Jacob again when he came out of Padam Aram and blessed him. And God said unto him, your name is Jacob. Your name shall not be called anymore Jacob, but Israel shall be your name. And he called his name Israel. And God said unto him, I am God Almighty. Be fruitful and multiply. A nation and a company of nations shall be of thee, and kings shall come out of your loins. In the land which I gave Abraham and Isaac, to thee I give it, and to your seed that after you will I give the land. Okay, so notice that God himself appears to him. And so far it's not plain how he appears, if it's a dream or a vision or an actual encounter like when he wrestled with him. We'll see in a moment. But he appears to him. It reminds him here of how he changed his name to Israel. That he's not to be called Jacob anymore, the hill of God, or figuratively, God, heel grabber, deceiver. But Israel, one that wrestles with God, will hang on and not let go of God, regardless of what happens. And notice he says he's be fruitful, multiply. And notice a nation and a company of nations. Well, what's that mean by a nation, a company of nations? Why not just say a company of nations? Because they're two different things. One is the nation of Israel. Now, they'll say, well, maybe it means when they divide into the northern southern kingdom, the house of Judah and the house of and the house of Israel. That wouldn't be a company. Two is not a company. Okay. So it's not referring to that. One is Israel, but what's this company of nations? That's the Gentiles who would become believers through Messiah and be grafted into Israel as described in Romans 9, 10, 11 later. Okay. That's this company of nations. I mean, that word is even the same as Gentile. They should say a company of Gentiles. It could say that. Goyim shall be of you. Kings are going to come out of your loins. Well, yeah, David and the whole and everyone and all the kings of Israel thereafter, including Messiah, going to come through his loins. And notice the land. I will give it to you. The land I gave to Abraham and Isaac. Remember, Abraham's promise included what was given to Lot's children, Ammon and Moab, and Esau, and we showed how Ammon and Moab's lie that God never takes that back. He told Israel not to enter into it, and even in the future, when judgment comes in those lands, the lands are destroyed, and those remnant of those people who turn to God are integrate or become part of the people of Israel. That land is still not given to is not given to Israel. So the land that he's talking about here is the land of Canaan. Isaac got the land of Canaan. Esau and Isaac divide that too. Seir over to the east of the rift that connects the Dead Sea down to the kind of like a wadi down to the Red Sea. Over there in the land of Eden, the southern half of Jordan today, and perhaps a little further, was given to Esau. Ishmael's over there to the east also. So the other Abraham and other sons who also moved over to the east. But the land of Canaan and in the land of Esau of Edom went to Isaac, and then Isaac divided. Now the land of Canaan goes to Jacob. Why? Because that's the land. I will give you the land of Canaan, the Canaanites, because their wickedness. That's the land that God has reserved for the people that Messiah would come through, to mark them as the people that Messiah would come out, so people could identify Messiah. That's why the big deal about the land is here. And God's letting Jacob know his calling was without repentance. Jacob, he's not changed his mind about Jacob on one thing, despite what Jacob has done. But now Jacob's trusting him, and what his children have done have showed themselves to be very bad so far. has not changed God's mind either about it. Your seed, particularly talking about the Messiah, but well, I'll give the land, doesn't mean just Messiah, it means all of his descendants. God has not changed his mind despite the bad behavior of the children of Jacob. Now we continue on in Genesis 35, verse 13 through 15. We read the following. And God went up from him in that place where he talked to them. And Jacob set up a pillar in the place where he talked to him, even the pillar of stone. He poured a drink offering thereon and poured oil thereon. He called the name of that place where God spoke to him Bethel. Okay, remember, he'd done the same thing. The stone he slept on, he made a pillar out of it before, some 20 plus years earlier. He's renewing his relationship with the house of God. He's there. And notice God went up from him. God was there with him. Now, how can God be with him? We talked about this before. Yeshua said, no man has seen the Father. Because it is a pre-carnate manifestation of Yeshua. That is Yeshua coming to the earth in a different form than before he became a man through Mary. Okay. And again, this shows also that Yeshua is God indeed. And there's numerous other scriptures that point that, but God the Father could not have seen him. He could not have seen God the Father and lived. Even if the Torah says that very plainly, okay? So that's how he could see God and live, because he wasn't seeing the Father, he was seeing the Son. Now we continue on. In Genesis 35, in verse 16 through 20, and we see what's happened here after Jacob has renewed himself, his relationship with God, been reassured by God that he's none of his promises. I mean, Jacob hadn't lost any of them through either his own bad behavior or through his children's bad behavior. And the calling of God is without repentance. So we continue on here, and here's what we read in Genesis 35, as we continue on 35, verse 16 through 20. They journeyed from Bethel, and there was but a little way to come to Ephrath, and Rachel prevailed, and she had hard labor. And it came to pass when she was hard labor that the midwife said to her, "Fear not, you shall have this son also." And it came to pass while her soul was departing, for she died, and she called his name Benomi. But his father called him Benjamin. And Rachel died and was buried in the way to Ephrath, which is Bethlehem. And Jacob set a pillar upon their grave. This is the pillar of Rachel's grave unto this day. Okay. There's really kind of a lot in here. Now notice he's leaving the house of God, perhaps because for his flocks, whatever the case is. And just like us, we're not, generally we're not. We may go to church one day, or church or congregate somewhere one day a week, but we don't live there. And that's the same thing here, okay? Generally speaking. So he's moved out, and when he gets near Bethlehem, the house of bread, she has the other son. Now remember, she finally showed some faith. She finally showed faith in God. When Joseph was born, his name means adding, said God will add another son to her. This is that other son. But we don't know her age compared to Jacob, but Jacob here is over. Jacob here is over 97 years old, perhaps around 100. If she's 40 years younger, she'd still be 60. Okay. Whatever it was, she did not, this is kind of a supernatural birth. What it wasn't expected except by her, who shows some faith in this. But she calls himself his son, the son of her sorrow, Benomi. But his father calls him Benjamin, son of my right hand. And where's the son of sorrow, son of my right hand? Born at Bethlehem. This speaks of Messiah, of course. Of Messiah. Messiah he's a son of sorrow, a man acquainted with sorrow, as spoken of in Isaiah and in the Psalms. But after his resurrection, he where? You see him on the right hand of God the Father. He's the son of the right hand. And this all foreshadows that. And now he's put a pillar up there for a grave, not to mark it, like perhaps, and this may be perhaps the first example of a gravestone. Remember, there's no mention of a there's an oak or Deborah, but now there's a stone here. Okay. Now, so what this means? This also means she's not buried in the cave of Machpelah, the double chambered cavern where the men were in one and women in the other one. She's not going to be. She's not buried in there, and probably just decay sets in within 3 days. It's right with any practical way to get her there. Or perhaps Jacob couldn't, move his whole flocks and herds and everything else. Who knows? But she's not in Machpelah. Okay, that much is plain here. So so she dies in Bethlehem, where the son of sorrow, son of the right hand, would be born, was born. Now we continue on in Genesis 35 in verses 21 through 26 and see what happens after that. Because and Jacob and Israel journeyed and spread his tent beyond the Tower of Adar. And it came to pass when Israel dwelt in the land that Reuben went and lay with Bilhah, his father's concubine, and Israel heard it. Now the sons of Israel were 12. The sons of Leah, Reuben, Jacob's firstborn, and Simeon and Levi and Judah and Issachar and Zebulun. The sons of Rachel, that is to say, Joseph and Benjamin. The sons of Bilhah, Rachel's handmaid, Dan and Naphtali. The sons of Zilpah, Leah's handmaid, Gad and Asher. These are the sons of Jacob, which were born unto him in Padan Aram. Okay. So there's a lot. First of all, this Tower of Adar is like the Tower of Sheep watching. Okay. So beyond the tower there. Okay. So he's perhaps in a southern land, it's not really conducive for sheep at all. But nonetheless, or he's perhaps at the edge of the graze of the land where sheep can be, and he's at and while he's in that land, Reuben, who's now in his 20s somewhere, goes and lays with Bilhah, his father's concubine. Now is Bilhah is younger. Bilhah was born. Bilhah became his. It says concubine here. Remember, because she was given by Rachel. Okay, there was no joining, not a wife in this passage, because there's no joining of two families together. Just the joining of two individuals. That's the difference between a concubine and a wife. Okay, so her family wouldn't join to Jacob's family by this marriage, and Jacob now, Rachel's died, and perhaps one thing is maybe he's neglecting the marital right of his other wives. And the Torah actually says that it's their right. It's not gee, well, a man, it's as much the right of the woman as is a man. It's not really optional, okay? But perhaps he's neglected her. But one thing for sure, and perhaps she's in need. But Reuben's a young man. He shows himself again to be foolish here. Probably thought he wouldn't get away with it. Probably thought I could figure it out. Israel heard of it, though. He tried to deceive his father, as Israel or Jacob had deceived his father. Paybacks are continuing, and they are far from done. This undoubtedly hurt him, but undoubtedly hurt Isaac when he realized he'd been deceived. It hurt Isaac when Jacob ran and fled and didn't come back for 20 years plus. And paybacks are terrible, as I said before. Even though Jacob's a changed man, The repercussions of what he has done are continuing. And part of that is this poor character of his children. He's repented, but he's done this. He's already screwed up his kids before he did this. What did we see among them? We saw killing innocent people, fornicating, Dinah. We saw deception, idolatry among them. And now this is like what Shoal writes about in Corinthians, that a man should lay with his father's have his father's wife. Some people have tried to claim this is something else, but again, read in plain Hebrew if you're in doubt. I mean, in Hebrew, it's in plain Hebrew. It literally means what it says right here. This translation is extremely accurate and reliable. Okay, he went and had sex with this Bilhah, his father's wife, and his father's wife, and the handmaiden was probably quite a bit younger than Rachel. That's why she gave him. She's younger, more likely to conceive. Okay. So she's maybe in her 40s, say, perhaps something, and Reuben's in his 20s. And he's let himself be cougared here. And remember the words of Solomon again, as we talked about wisdom with women. Reuben is a fool here. He cannot see that if this woman, Bilhah, who he knows is one of his father's concubine, one of his wives, he's not going to get away with this. He can't see that if she's wanting him to get involved with her, then she's after something. What's she after? He is Jacob's firstborn. And remember, the firstborn has the birthright, a double portion of the inheritance and the blessing, and it's his to lose. Well, there's going to be repercussions for Reuben, as we shall see from this. But this is the way Jacob's children were. He has screwed them up almost completely, because he did not raise them in the admonition of the Lord. He worshiped God. He talked about it, but he didn't live it. Until he certainly didn't trust God, and operated by deceit and taking matters in his own hands, and now it's coming back on him through his children. So in Genesis 35, verses 27 to 29, I read the following. And Jacob came to Isaac his father at Mamre, unto the city of Arba, which is Hebron, where Abraham and Isaac journeyed. In the days of Isaac were 180 years old, and Isaac gave the ghost and died, and was gathered to people being old and full of days, and his son Esau and Jacob buried him. Okay, this is the beginning of a parenthetical part where these events are not occurring at the same time. The next chapter, which we reviewed last week, talks about Esau and the Edomites. Okay, so this is a little bit of house cleaning going on by the author here in Genesis in the writing, where we're basically we all reference to Rebecca's gone, her nurse, except and different people are dying and going off one by one. Rachel's out of the picture. Now Esau's being taken out of the picture, because we're focused on not even Jacob so much as Jacob's children. Jacob to some degree, but largely his children from this point forward. And this has not occurred at this time. And we know this because Isaac was 180 years old. That means Jacob was born to when he was 60, meaning Jacob's 120. And there's events that occur after this that occur before Jacob's 120. Okay, and you can see some of this right here. Isaac dies in year 2288 after Adam was formed out of the dust. That's where we start at, okay? Joseph becomes prime minister when he's 30 years old in 2289, 1 year later, when he's 30. Remember when Israel moved to Egypt, he said it was 130, I'm sorry. And Joseph, we know, was 39 in the text. And I proved this in a previous lesson. making Joseph born when Abraham, making Joseph born when Jacob was 91 years old. So this is this is a 20 120. This will be 29 years after the birth of Joseph. 23 years 23 years after Jacob and Laban after Jacob returned to the land. Okay. So it's not, I just want to clarify that this is parenthetical. This is okay, just some house killing as it will, because the narrative is shifting the focus on the children of Jacob and him for the rest of Genesis. Okay, we're gonna continue on in verses 20 in verse 38, verses 1 through 5, and we're gonna find out some more about Jacob, about one of Jacob's children in particular, and that would be Judah. And it came to pass that time when Judah went down from his burden, turned to a certain Adulamite, whose name was Hira. And Judah saw there a daughter of a certain Canaanite, whose name was Shua. And he took her and went in unto her. She conceived and bare a son and called his name She conceived again and bare a son and called his name Onan. She conceived again and bare a son and called his name Shelah. And he was at Kazib, where she bare him. Okay, so first of all, notice he went down from his brethren. His brethren are what? The people of Israel. Okay, the people of God. He's now went down from them. You already to go down. All right, he's went down. He's not Aliyad went up. He's went down. He's went down from the people of God and made friends with the Dulamite. Well, that's an idol worship. Those people are idol worshipers named Hira. He's a man of the world. And he marries a daughter of a certain Canaanite. Now, why does he marry a Canaanite woman? Why didn't Jacob send this? Abraham had sent had melted a bride for Isaac from the land where he came from Rebecca, got Rebecca, of course. And Rebecca sent Jacob to get a wife from among her, because there are no more worshipers of God there. Remember, we saw with Laban, he had left off worshiping God, and so had his children, and so did those people who were back there. So now they have no worshipers of God unless they can find some among the Canaanites who will leave off their idolatry to worship God. But in this case, seems to be no indication that the idolatry was left off. He took her. That means he took her in marriage. Okay, and went into her. They're married, and she has these 3 sons for him. So let's continue on and see what else Judah does here. In Genesis 38, verse 6 through 10. Judah took a wife for his firstborn, who was named Tamar. And Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord slew him. And Judah said to Onan, go into your brother's wife and marry her and raise up seed to your brother. No, the seed that should not be his. And it came to pass, went into his brother's wife, he spilled it on the ground, lest you give seed to his brother. And the thing which he did displeased the Lord. Therefore, he slew him also. Okay, this woman Tamar, okay. Well, we're gonna find out about her, but let's look at Jacob's son. This is the grandson. I mean, Judah's son. This is the grandson. And look, he's wicked in the sight of the Lord. I mean, where do we see that kind of language about previously? Sodom and Gomorrah and the people of Noah's day before the flood. Okay. I mean, this expression, wicked in the sight of the Lord, he's not your run-of-the-mill, garden variety sinner here, okay? I mean, whatever it is, it's really bad, and the Lord kills him over it. Now, he tells Onan to go in there, and this is later shown up in the law. This is a law perhaps they understood, because remember, Abraham had walked in God's statutes and commandments, even though the Torah had not been given. Perhaps Abraham had passed this down to them. Judah says says to his next brother, you got to go in there and marry him. And what that means is the first child would be counted as heirs. The second one, if she had another boy, would be counted as Onan and carry on his name. Well, Onan didn't mind going into her and having sex with her, but he pulled out early. So as the Bible would call it, the King James, the seed of copulation came out. He withdrew her, and that's actually called onanism to this day. Sometimes referred to slightly incorrect as coitus interruptus, the Latin expression by medical terms, but that means it's just interrupted and didn't finish. The process didn't finish. In this case, he pulled out early and the process finished and it just went on the ground. And why? Is this some sort of thing against some sort of measure birth control? No, it's because he didn't want that. He didn't want to give seed to his brother. Onan did not love his brother, because the Torah explains this is an act of love to your brother to raise up seed for him by marrying your brother's wife and raising up seed for him. And notice how serious God takes this. God is highly displeased with him and kills him. Okay, so Judah's grandkids are really messed up, okay? And also think about how old this is now. Judah has gotten married, had kids, and now his son's gotten married. Okay, so some time has gone by here. So since some time has gone by here. This is probably getting close to the time of the death of Isaac we're talking about here. And then around that time perhaps. And then Genesis 38 verses 11 through 14, and we continue on verses 11 through 14. Read the following about this interaction. Then Judah said to Tamar, his daughter-in-law, remain a widow at your father's house till Shelah my son be grown. For he said, lest peradventure he die as his brother did. And Tamar went and dwelt in their father's house. In the process of time, the daughter of Shua, Judah's wife, died, and Judah was comforted and went up to his sheep shears and to Timoth, and he and his friend Harah the Adulamite. And behold, it was told Tamar, saying, behold, your father goes up to Timnath to shear his sheep. And she put off her widow's garments. He put her widow garments off her, and covered her with a veil, and wrapped herself and sat in an open place, by the way of Timnath, where she saw that Shelah was grown, and she was not given to him the wife. Okay, notice Judah, totally faithless here, totally deceptive. And notice the noble character of Tamar. He told her, remain a widow, put on this widow garment, telling every man around there, I'm not available. You cannot marry me, or get sexually involved with me. Right? And for all this time, she's mourning. She's wearing these clothing of mourning for first and then, of course, for Onan. And he has no intention of doing this. Notice again also how, again, we saw with Dinah, he's blaming her for the death of his two sons, of Shelah's brothers. He thinks she's bad news. She's jinxed, whatever, unlucky, whatever you want to say. Not acknowledging that his son's wickedness brought this upon them, not this woman, Tamar, who's showing herself to be nothing but noble here. So now she's taking those willow garments off, and she's covering herself in the veil, and she's going to sit there and show that she's available. She's available for sex. Is what she's showing by doing this. Because she's realized he's not giving him Shelah as he had promised. Judah is a liar, without a doubt here, and no faith in God at all, and refuses to acknowledge the wrongness of his own children, just as he refused to acknowledge the wrongness of his sister in the previous matter. Now we continue on in Genesis 38 and verses 15 through 19. When Judah saw her, he thought her to be a harlot because she had covered his face. She had covered her face. He turned to her by the way and said, Go, I pray you, let me come unto you. For he knew not that she was his daughter-in-law. And she said, What will you give me that you may come unto me? And he said, I'll give you a kid from the flock. And she said, Will you give me a pledge till you send it? He said, What pledge shall I give you? She said, Your signet, your bracelets, and your staff that is in your hand. And he gave it and came into her, and she conceived by him. And she arose and went her way, laid by her veil from her, and put on the garments of her widowhood. Okay, notice he thinks her to be a harlot. Judah thinks a harlot, member, is like a prostitute that's trying to get you to worship their god. They're not just after your money; they're after your religion, again to entice you to worship their god. And you think that because he's covered her face, they often wouldn't want their face shown for various reasons, and we'll see a good one here in a little bit. Okay, but he approaches her. He thinks this woman is out there advertising she wants to have sex with somebody to entice her God, and he's signing up for it. Now, notice her cleverness. When she asked him, he said, what will I come? I said, what will you give me? Well, she can see, as we can see from this, he has nothing with him. So now she asked for a pledge. You notice what she asked for. His signet, his bracelet, and his staff. They're in her hand. This were very foolish things for him to give her, but he gave them to her. Why? That signet was like a signature, like you read about king signet rings. It represented his authority, his power to rule over matters, and being the final authority in his tribe or whatever. Bracelets, perhaps made of gold or some other kind of precious metal, indicated were symbols of his wealth. And the staff in his hand was about his lineage. What the Phoenicians had introduced writing, which became Hebrew writing characters later, Paleo Hebrew, and a common custom was when a father would write the first guy wrote his lineage all the way back to Adam, and after that, the son would write, and the father would make the son would make a copy of that, and then carve his own name above his father's when he got in charge after his father died of his part, or rather his entire father's camp. Okay, this is about his ruling. Okay, and this is about his identity. And and these things are worth way more. Just their raw value, the signet and the bracelets are worth way more than the kid from the flock. But his wife has died, and he was comforted. I mean, he waited till the time of mourning was over. But now he wants a woman, and they don't want to marry somebody. And remember, they brought in those other women. There are worshipers of God, but he didn't marry a worshiper of God. He didn't get a worshiper of God that been brought to the house of Jacob. Remember, he's left the house of Jacob, went down from his brothers, went down from the people of God. And his flesh is ruling him. And he was foolishly gives her this stuff. But notice her. After she's conceived, what'd she do? She took that veil off. She no longer advertised she's available and desiring to have sex with somebody, puts back on the garments for widowhood, acknowledging her marriage to her dead husband, or husbands, as the case actually is. All she was after was the seed carry on her husband's names. You'll see why I mean husband's names in a minute here. That's all she was after. Now, we're gonna wrap up. We're gonna wrap up here in our last section. You're looking at continue on here. We're looking at Judah and his interaction with her. And in Genesis 38 verses 20 through 23, read the following. And Judah sent a goat, the kid, by the hand of his friend Abdullah the Adullamite, to receive his pledge from the woman's hand, but he found her not. And he asked the men of that place, saying, Where's the harlot that was openly by the wayside? And they said, There is no harlot in this place. And he returned to Judah and said, I cannot find her. Also, the men of that place said, There is no harlot in this place. And Judah said, Let her take it to her, lest we be shamed. Behold, I sent this kid, and you have not found her. Okay, notice he doesn't go himself. He sends it by this Adullamite. He's trying to keep himself not known that he's went into this harlot. He's trying to hide his sin through his friend here. But they get there and there's no harlot that hangs out there. The men don't know what she's talking about because she was not a harlot at all. She was a widow seeking to give seed to her dead husbands. And let her take it to her. He's willing to let her keep these symbols of his authority, his wealth and his identity, rather than face shame. And its justification, I tried to pay her. But I couldn't find her. Now, we continue on here in Genesis 38, verses 24 through 26, and we're going to read the following. And they came to us about 3 months after that was told Judah, saying, Tamar, your daughter-in-law, has played the harlot. And behold, she is with child by whoredom. And Judah said, Bring her forth and let her be burnt. And when she was brought forth, she sent to her father-in-law, saying, By the man that these are, I am with child. And she said, Discern, I pray, whose these are, the signet, the bracelets, and staff. And Judas acknowledged them and said, She has been more righteous than I, because I gave her not to Shelah, my son. And he knew her no more again. Okay, 3 months, she just start the show, okay? And she literally played the harlot. There was no harlot there. We just read. She played one like in a play. With child by whoredom. Well, only whoredom was on the behalf of Judah. She has been in this, and Judah recognizes this. She's more righteous. Judah, this is his fault. It's the first time he's not blaming someone outside his own family for the failings of his own family. And why? Because she's trapped him. Not only does he recognize this, he's brought forth, well, he ain't got to do this burning by himself. He's got Judah's commanding other people, okay, to bring her forth. And by the way, this about bring her forth to be burnt was in the code of Hammurabi, the first written laws that we know of. And remember, we read before, Chedorlaomer, with Abraham and the kings, by all the kings, the Babylonians been building that old Babylonian empire. Started with Nimrod, and had taken control at various times parts of the land of Canaan. So he's under that law here. That's why he's saying this. But everyone with him recognizes those are his. He has been caught. He cannot deny it. And he finally quits blaming other people for the shortcomings of his own family, for the sins. She's been more righteous than me. He did not deal righteously with her to begin with, and she waited all those years. But he didn't go into her again because he knew that, yeah, it was whoredom, his whoredom, really. That just like with Dinah, it took two to commit this sin, and he had been all too willing. He was hot to trot when he saw her body, but not their face. So we continue on here in Genesis 38, verse 27 through 30. We wrap up this here with this here incident here with Tamar. And now she she has been every bit noble and it will come to and it'll come and that will bear out here. And it came to pass the time of her travail, behold, twins were born and were in her womb. And it came to pass for his travail that one put out his hand, the midwife took and bound his hand. A scholar said, saying, this came out first. And it came to pass he drew his hand back, and behold, his brother came out and said, how have you broken forth? This breach be upon you. Therefore his name was Pharez. Afterward came out his brother, had the scarlet thread upon his hand, and his name was Zerah. Okay. So they're twins. Why twins? Why did God give her twins? She had two dead husbands to raise up seed for. Remember, the first one would be counted as belonging to the Zara with the scarlet thread. The second one would be counted belonging to Onan, and that's all she'd been after. The raise up seed for her dead husbands. And she was willing to do it the right way, but Judah had lied to her. And this is all on him. And interesting, and Pharez somehow pulled his brothers as if they knew whoever came out first was going to get some. Get this. It's a little unclear. Of course, you can't see in the womb there. Rather, Zara just pushed his hand past his brother, and then his brother pushed him back, or his brother's on his way out, and his brother pulled him back. But the midwife can't figure out how he came out first, and the other one had his hand out first. So we see the struggle between brothers again, just like we saw with Isaac and Ishmael, with Jacob and Esau. But this Pharez is the one Messiah is going to come through ultimately. His name means breach. Pharez means breach. So that ends us for the day. So what can we see? We can see that just because if you don't repent until you've raised your children, you've already screwed them up. Look at the children of Jacob here. I'm not calling the children of Jacob, not Israel, because they're not acting like Israel, that changed man, but like Jacob, the man before he became changed. What do we see about them? Sexual immorality, promiscuity, lying, cheating, involved in idolatry, murdering innocent people. I mean, even to the point of committing even the point of one of his sons having sex with his own wife, with his father's wife. And they've screwed up their grandkids as well. I mean, his grandkids, two of them were so evil, God just killed them. They are now the children of Jacob. But God's desire is to be the children of Israel. God will bring upon them and their descendants a changed heart so that he can bring upon all the promise he made to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Because the calling of God, the gifts and calling of God are without repentance. But and next week, as I said before, almost all of his children, there is an exception. And we're going to look at that exception next week when we talk about Joseph. Until then, shalom.